Good morning. This is the JP Dinnell podcast, episode 142. I am JP Dinnell, and as always, I have Lucas and me. So, a recent Harvard Business Review article shared that in today's workplace, trust is eroding. Employee engagement has hit an all-time low, and top talent is walking out the door at greater frequency. The author's diagnosis: a leadership skill gap. They called the missing ingredients power skills, which are empathy, communication, and adaptability. And they're right. These skills are learnable and they are developed with the right training. The problem is that most leaders have never received that training. We've been saying this for many years at Echelon Front, but we call it something different. We call it extreme ownership. Often, organizations promote their best individual performers into leadership roles and then assume the leadership skills will follow. They don't. Leading people, building trust, communicating the why, and empowering them to lead is its own discipline. Leadership is a skill, and like any skill, it requires deliberate development. When decisions consistently miss the mark and the team disengages, that's not a personality flaw. It's a training gap. In The Dichotomy of Leadership, Jocko Leif wrote that leaders must find balance among many facets of leadership. That balance doesn't come naturally to most people. It has to be taught, practiced, and reinforced. The same way any other critical skill is developed. If your team is disengaged, don't blame the workforce. Ask earnest questions. Have you clearly communicated the mission? Do your people understand how their work contributes to the strategic goal? Have you built the kind of trust where they'll tell you the truth when things aren't working? If the answer to any of those is no, that is a solvable problem. But only if you take ownership of it and commit to develop the skills to fix it. The skill gap is real. It can be closed, but it will not close on its own. It requires the kind of rigorous, honest, applicable leadership training that most people in positions of authority have never received. This week, identify one person on your team who seems disengaged. Don't assume you know why. Ask them an earnest question. What's getting in the way of your best work? Then listen to understand. If they complain of a problem you can help solve it. Take ownership and commit to developing the leadership skills they need to address it. The skill gap in Harvard Business Review is describing is real, and it's fixable. But it won't be fixed by accident. The leaders on your team need to understand that everyone in your organization is a leader, and that leadership is a skill, and that it must be built deliberately. So this was from the Extreme Ownership Rundown, number 178. These articles come out every Friday. I personally love getting them every Friday. I know Lucas does as well, and a handful of our friends in our circle. And I also have a large handful of clients that I've worked with directly at Echelon Front that use these emails every Friday to lead discussions with their team about the leadership principles we teach at Echelon Front. They use it as an opportunity to reflect upon the week and assess where did they do these things right and where could they have improved. Then they also take them on Monday, review it again as a reminder of what they need to be focused on this week, and then they assess it throughout the week. I personally think it's a great way to keep your people engaged and have simple conversations focused on their leadership skill sets. So if you want to check out what the rundown has going on, and if you want to be a part of it, go to echelonfront.com, click on About at the top of the page, and join us for those weekly emails. We will also include it in the show notes of this episode so that you can also get after it with us. Now, I know we have some questions we want to quickly get into for this episode, but before we do that, Lucas, how are you, buddy?
Ben, I'm great. And I've got a bunch of questions about this rundown before we get into cool. Other stuff, because I think that
maybe that's just what we talk about today.
Well, so many of the questions that we get asked have to do with disengaged workforces. Right. And there's different ways that they ask the question, but essentially, like, they're all getting at the same thing. You know, there was something he talked about in there is like these essential kind of like superpower things. And there's, are you familiar with the book Atomic Habits?
Yeah.
I'm going to walk us back.
Okay.
Right. So Atomic Habits is written by a guy named James Clear.
Yep.
Okay. Atomic Habits is based off of a book called The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. And it is forward to Atomic Habits. Clear says, this is my sequel to The Power of Habit. And The Power of Habit, for most people that read, you know, that kind of book, is like in their S tier. Okay, so like Atomic Habits may end up as, you know, an A tier or B tier, but The Power of Habit is kind of this S tier book because everything from Atomic Habits is predicated on that. That in mind, the guy that wrote the book that Atomic Habits is based off of, so if you're following me, writes this other book called Super Communicators a couple of years ago. Goes to the top of the charts on New York Times bestseller list, is unbelievable, and then kind of gets buried because what it talks about is all of these things that leaders can do that are uncomfortable for us to do. There's not a lot of clear, actionable steps. It's not like, hey, you should do X, Y, and Z, and then you'll become better. Whereas Atomic Habits gives you this clear, like, hey, if you do these 5 things, you know, you build a better habit. Duhigg takes this different approach, but the main thing he focuses on is that the best communicators in the world and the communicators that end up having the most power in a room are the ones who show empathy and then bring out the empathy and emotion in others. And whether those are incredible salespeople, whether they're leaders that are trying to sway folks. In one instance he uses is in a jury room, that there's a case that's going to go, you know, one way, and there's one person on the jury that is like, no, I'm not going to do it. And so this guy, who's this incredible super communicator, is able to figure out the way to say it to the one dissenter, to where, like, now this guy is becoming the biggest advocate for this side that he was opposed to and had locked these votes on. So that said, when we're going into these situations where we have a workforce where trust is eroding, right, or one that's disengaged, we get this question a lot: is how do you, and oftentimes it's couched like this, how do we get this generation of lazy, disengaged people, right? How do we get them motivated? And one of the things we've kind of talked about and around is that what the rundown talks about is like finding the way to communicate with your team. And so my first question to you is, what do you have to figure out first? Do you have to figure out how to communicate with the team first, or do you need to figure out how to communicate with each individual on the team first whenever you're trying to re-engage a group that seems disengaged?
It's both. You have to be able to communicate to the team to where they understand the commander's intent. They understand, hey, this is what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
This is why we're doing these things. And then when you're talking to individuals, you have to learn to modify how you talk depending on who you're talking with. As a leader, like, that is part of your responsibility as a leader, is to be able to adapt who you are and how you communicate to deliver an impactful conversation. Like, okay, for instance, I have kids. They're older than yours, so I'll use mine as an example.
Cool.
So I have a 20-year-old son.
Don't listen at all.
Exactly. They're at that age. I have a 20-year-old son, 17-year-old son, and twin daughters that are 14. Now, when I'm talking with my family, yeah, I'm like, hey, broadly, this is what we're doing. These are things that we're doing. These are things that we're thinking about. But when I have individual conversations with Aiden or Hayden or Cora or Nola or my wife Amanda, how I communicate to them is different based off of what I need to talk about, what they have going on, personalities, how important and relevant this is to them, because something that might be really important to the girls isn't super important to the boys.
Oh, for sure.
So if I talk to the boys the same way I talk to the girls, or I talk to the girls the same way I talk to the boys, it could be ineffective.
Yeah.
And when we're thinking about communication, there's only 2 measures that matter: effective or ineffective. So I, as a leader, we look at things through the lens of extreme ownership. I, as a leader, have to modify and change how I communicate to have effective conversations with my people. So yes, broadly, I have to be able to communicate to the whole team. That is absolutely necessary, is to be able to communicate to the whole team. And then when I go in and have those specific one-on-one conversations or small group conversations, that's going to look and sound different than communicating to the team. Because now, so I think about like from in tasking a Bruiser, when Jocko would talk to our task unit, it's like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. Let me know how you guys want to do it. So he's driving ownership back down to us. If you want to get your people engaged, give them ownership. Yeah. That's the easiest way to get people engaged. Hey, Lucas, what do you think we should be doing? Oh, I don't know. I don't care. All right. Well, hey, you're in charge of this next training at evolution. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. Here's the parameters in which we can do things. Here's your resources. Come up with a skeleton plan. Brief it to me, and we'll work through it together. Yeah. I'm gonna still give you ownership, even if you're like, oh, I don't care. I don't know. I don't care. I'm gonna get you engaged by giving you ownership, and I'm also gonna have empathy for you. I'm going to encourage you, and I'm going to ask myself, okay, why is Lucas not engaged? Why does he not want to take lead on this? Right. Has he had a bad experience in the past where a leader tasked him with doing something? He didn't do it very well because of skill gap, or, capabilities weren't there yet because of, training or age or experience or whatever. And did he have a bad leader that embarrassed him, that, hammered him, that didn't support him? That might be the case. Yeah. So, all right, cool. How do I encourage my people? How do I coach my people? How do I lead my people? I have to have those conversations, and I have to give them ownership.
So I want to, I've got a small list of things, and I don't know that we'll necessarily role play on this program. Okay. But I do think that this is important for us to look at. So these are legit responses that we have gotten in question form from some of our people that have to do with disengagement. Okay, so person number one, trying to get a disengaged employee to engage. This is the answer he gets, right? So he's doing the thing that Leif has asked him, or, that Leif talks about in the rundown. He's going to him, he's asking him, hey, what can we do to get you more engaged? Okay. And some of these responses are polar opposites of each other, which is, just the nature of working with people. But the first one is, I'm not engaged because we only talk about work stuff here. I don't feel like anybody really cares about me. All we do is talk about work stuff.
Okay, you're right, and I'm sorry. Like if that's
that's a tough one to start off with, but I've had to deal with that one before.
And the immediate response is, you're right, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Because I'm not going to say this, but it's like, yeah, we're at work, but
yeah, because that's my immediate. Of course, we only talk about work stuff.
But if that's all
we have an HR department.
But if that's all we talk about, that is also a problem.
Right.
Because then I'm not building genuine relationships with my people. Yeah. And if somebody voices that concern, I'm going to validate it. Yeah. I'm going to receive it, and I'm going to say, yeah, you're right. Hey, you know what, Lucas? You're right. I'm really sorry. Man, we have only been focused on talking about work stuff at work, and I need to do a better job, and I will do a better job having conversations that aren't related to work, because I also understand that's really important for us to build actual friendships and relationships. Yeah. And hey, moving forward, I'm going to be more intentional with asking about stuff outside of work. Hey, you know what are some of the things that you really enjoy doing when you're not working?
Pokemon cards.
Awesome. I've actually never played with Pokemon cards.
I believe that.
It doesn't matter. Right. Like if you say something, if you're like Jiu-Jitsu, I'd be like, dude, that's awesome. I train Jiu-Jitsu. Where do you train at? How long you been training? And even if you go to the extreme and you say something like, and I know you're like throwing me for a loop on that, but even if like somebody was to say something that I literally have never done, I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. I've literally never done that before. How long have you been doing that?
Yeah. What's your favorite Pokemon card?
Yeah, cool. Yeah. If you want to engage that deep, but I'm going to validate and ask, all right, cool. Like, how long have you been involved in that? Like what got you there? Right. How much time do you spend doing that? Is that just like you do that every night to kind of decompress? All right, cool.
Yeah.
Whether
or are you like at the level where you're going to conventions and you're, card swapping, right? Well, and the reason I bring up Pokemon cards, it is a little tongue in cheek because I had a feeling, I wasn't 100% sure.
Yeah.
You'd never dabbled in Pokemon cards.
No.
But like trading cards just in general is becoming like, it was a thing whenever we were kids growing up. Like people would have like baseball cards and stuff like that,
Yeah.
that they would, whether we did it or not, like they had cards and stuff that they traded. It sort of went away. And now all of a sudden it's back and it's massive. But this isn't now a new hobby that for a lot of people in our generation, like maybe we did it when we were kids, but we've forgotten about it. And now there's a lot of people in that 25 and under that they're into that kind of thing. And it's totally foreign to like what we've done in our adult lives.
Yeah.
So when you get some things like that, it can be a little difficult to engage because there's a certain amount of authenticity that we have to have in, I say a certain amount, like we have to be authentic in these interactions if we're actually looking to rebuild trust.
Yeah.
So feigning interest in Pokemon is not necessarily going to, help our case. So how do we genuinely engage when it's something we have no interest in?
Okay. Let's say this was an actual thing. Mm-hmm. I have zero interest in Pokemon cards.
Yeah.
Zero.
And I'm bringing this up because this is a thing that I've had to deal with. This exact scenario.
Okay.
This exact
I have
scenario.
zero interest in it, but I'm interested in you. If you work with me or for me,
right,
I'm legitimately interested in you as a human. So if you're saying that you like something, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Like I'm like my attitude towards it. It's like people that play pickleball. I have zero interest in pickleball.
Yeah.
But I don't.
Another great one that's like massive now.
It's huge. But when people are talking about pickleball, I'm not making fun of them. I'm not being like, hey, why don't you do something real like jiu-jitsu that's a practical life skill set. Like
you think being a dinker is a practical?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't do that because that's just rude.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Like that's just rude
for sure.
And if you like pickleball, I would like. Let's say we're talking about pickleball, and I'd be like, oh man, I've never played pickleball. Like, how does that even work? Is it like tennis? Is it like racquetball? Is it like volleyball? I would ask questions, like genuine questions that I just wonder about, and then I'm gonna listen to what you say. I'm like, oh cool. How often do you play pickleball? 3 times a week? Is it a good workout? Oh, cool. That's awesome, man. Because I have buddies who play pickleball to spend time with other people in their life that are important.
For sure.
And they're like, yeah, it's something I like would never do on my own or with this other group of friends, but I do it with this group because they really like it. And they were like, dude, I'll tell you what, it can get pretty intense and it's a good workout.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, hey, cool. You're being active. I can respect that. Let's say it was the Pokemon situation where, okay, you're not being active. There's no physical activity to it. I would ask questions like, okay, how often do you play Pokemon cards? Every night? All right, cool. How long do you play? All right. So does that give you like some good time just to kind of decompress from the day? Mm-hmm. Just, you don't have to think about work. You don't have to think about all the stress. And does that give you that window to do that? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, cool, man. That's really important. That's cool that you have a hobby that allows you to just decompress, detach from the day. And then, as you go about the rest of your day, cool. Like I'm going to find something that I can agree with, when it comes to something like that.
Yeah, because there are, no matter how foreign an interest may be to us, right? One of the things that's so incredible about the United States is the amount of subcultures that we have.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's, you've got people that are collectors and then they collect, okay, so do they collect toys? Do they collect sports memorabilia? Do they collect stuff for home defense, right? Do they collect Pokemon cards? And then, there's levels to it where there's also a social aspect to it, to people who get together and trade and like all of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I am not super interested in the minutia of all of that.
No.
But there are some things about that, like you're saying, that we can kind of bank on some of that stuff. And even if it's not something like, I'm never going to go, I say never, it's not likely that I'm going to go and, play in a Pokemon card tournament, right? Unless somebody shoots me a "you editing out" text message, and all of a sudden I got to go do it. But
I'd be really mad if somebody did that one to me.
But the end game is like figuring out how to build a relationship, right?
Yeah.
And I do think that there are, as much as we say that the generational differences are overblown, right? As far as like work ethic and those kinds of things. One of the things that's not is the variety of interests that the younger generations have and the things that they're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
And so learning to take, and I think your point was great, learning to take a genuine interest in the person
Yes.
versus the thing. Like I don't need to, if somebody's interested in pickleball or Pokemon cards or sneakers, right? All massive things right now.
Yeah.
I don't need to become an expert in any of those things
Yeah.
in order to have a relationship with them.
So my daughter Nola loves reading. I think
Great.
last year she read 100 books.
Unbelievable.
And these aren't small books.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, she's borrowed some of my books.
yeah.
I need them back, Nola.
So she loves to read.
Yeah.
I love that. I absolutely, and from a parenting aspect, like the fact that my kid loves
Huge win.
Yes.
Yeah.
Huge. She loves to read. I would never read those types of books, but I ask her about the books.
Yep.
Hey, what book are you reading? And she gets super excited. We're like, when I'm like, hey, what's that book like? And she's like, oh, it's in the series by this author. I love it. And she'll bring me to her bookshelf and be like, look, and she has like all the other books. She loves that.
Yeah.
I would never read those books, but I love talking to my daughter about the books she's reading.
For sure.
Cora loves makeup.
Yeah.
Loves doing makeup, doing her own makeup, doing her friends' makeup, loves doing makeup. Like and she's really good at it. And she will do Noel's makeup and her friend's makeup and is always playing with different makeup. Like she'll do makeup and then wash her face and then do it again in a different way. Like that's what she really likes.
Right.
And she's like, you think I could ever be a makeup artist? I'm like, absolutely you could, for sure. Doing makeup and hair. Yeah. Hey, guess what, girl? There's some money in that too.
Mm-hmm.
And I will never do somebody's makeup. I will never do somebody's hair.
Lord.
Yeah. Unless you want to look like a clown, I got you. But you know what I love doing is talking to my daughter about the makeup.
Yeah.
And how she does the shadowing and, the different things that she does. I'm like, cool. So we'll talk about that. And I'll be like, hey, what are you watching? YouTube videos on makeup. Cool. And I'll lay next to her.
Yeah.
And watch the video about makeup. Am I ever going to take that? No.
Yeah.
But it's showing general interest in what she likes.
Yeah.
And it's same thing with Aiden. Sometimes he'll show me a video and I'm like, I don't want to watch this video. But it's a video he likes. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, cool, right? Do the same thing. And, the video games I used to play and the video games that Hayden plays, like I'm interested in those video games because I'm interested in my son. Yeah. Because he likes to do those things.
You're not going to spend 65 hours on Red Dead Redemption?
Nope.
You don't think?
But he did.
Yeah, for sure.
And you know what? The joy he had in explaining to Amanda and I Red Dead Redemption and how the storyline and the graphics and the awards that they won for the graphics and the storyline, like I was like, all right, I could. Dude, I'll tell you what. I even told Amanda, I'm like, man, I actually thought about buying the game and the system. Like you did a good job selling me, bud. Yeah. And there's things that, Amanda is really into. All right, cool. I'm not, but you know what? I love my wife.
Right.
One of my friends, I almost gave too much information, but one of my friends, his wife really loves antiquing. He hates it.
Sure.
No.
Yeah.
When I say he hates it, he's like, I hate everything about it, brother. I hate the smell. I hate the look. I hate the places. He goes, but you know what? I love my wife. And I'm interested in that because it interests her. And I just think it's such a cool heart posture for us to have. So as a leader, why would you not have the same heart posture towards the people that work for you? Yeah. The people that you are in a position to lead. If they're interested in something, you should show some interest in that person and learn a little bit about them.
There's a quote that you've used before.
From the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
What interests my boss fascinates me.
100%.
Guess what? Flip it 180. What interests my people fascinates me.
Yeah. Because the fascination element of it and that word is so well chosen because it just means that we are inquisitive about it, right? Asking earnest questions about Pokemon or pickleball or makeup or, whatever it is that somebody that we're working with is really, really interested in may not be what we think of as the best use of our time. But at the end of the day, if that relationship with them is being built, that is the best use of our time.
Yeah. My wife used to train jiu-jitsu. She had some injuries, had to have some surgeries that took her out for a while. And she still has some pain, so she from some stuff, so she just doesn't train jiu-jitsu right now. Maybe never. I don't know. I'm always like, come on, girl, you gotta train,
Kirsten was all ready to go.
I know. I was just
baby.
Yeah. There's also a group of women from Double Five that are all waiting for Amanda to start training, and they'll start.
Nice.
So I hear, but yeah, it's nice. But I hear it from their husbands every week, like, "Hey, when's Amanda gonna start training? My wife's gonna train." I'm like, why does it have to be my wife?
Yeah.
And Amanda goes,
She the
why are
leader
they
of the
waiting
group?
on me? And
Yeah.
I'm like, I just mess. I'm like, this is a burden of leadership, girl. She's like, shut up. But the reason why I'm going down this path towards jiu-jitsu, my wife doesn't train.
Yeah.
But she comes to the gym to watch myself train and the kids train.
Yeah.
And there are times that our kids aren't training, and she will still come to the gym because she knows I love jiu-jitsu. She loves watching me train. And she also has a time when we're driving there for us to talk. We're driving home for us to talk. And then when she's at the gym, she's talking with some of the other wives and moms that are there.
Right.
And so she has that circle of friends that are now some very close friends of hers because it's that time that they get to spend talking. And they're talking about the stuff that they love. Gardening, bird watching, bird feeders, hummingbirds, like all these different things that okay, cool, I'll talk to you about it, but I don't have that interest.
Yep.
But I've grown interest in those things because that's what my wife really likes and loves.
Right on, man.
So
yeah, so this is it. So when you get the person who's disengaged and they say, "Hey, all we talk about is work stuff," you can probe into their interest a little bit
and validate it. Don't dismiss it. That's the worst thing you could do. Well, that's not true. Or yeah, you know what? Hey, we're at work. That's what we're talking about. Which you said that earlier because that's in our brain.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Now you wouldn't say that, but
No.
it's definitely.
I've thought it. I've thought it so many times.
I've thought a lot of things I haven't said.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Right.
Honestly.
The filter catches that.
Yeah.
So
that's why detachment's a superpower.
100%. But then you also have the opposite. You have somebody that you're like, "Hey, what can I do to get you, engaged?" And you're asking the question, like, "What are some things you're interested in?" And they're like, I'm at work. Let's keep it professional. I only want to talk about work stuff.
Cool. Guess what? I'm going to validate that too.
Yeah. So
because
how's the approach different?
It's based off of each individual because I'm talking to that person as an individual. Now, if I'm addressing the group, and if let's say somebody brings it up in the group, I'm like, "Hey, that's very valid. That's something I'll work on." And then let's say the guy next to him, call him Jocko, and Jocko's like, "Hey, we're at work. I only want to talk about work. Like, hey, I don't really care about anything other than winning at work." I'd be like, "Hey, you know what, Jocko? You're right. We're at work. We're going to be focused on work." I'm going to validate both of those.
Yeah.
Because, cool, you know what? Jocko only wants to focus on work, and he wants to win, and he's a producer, and that's all he wants. I will also receive and validate that and just put it in my little filing cabinet for each personality that I have on my team and say, cool, when I'm talking to Jocko, it's work. I will also be intentional about building a little bit of the personal relationship in very small steps.
Yeah.
Very small steps. And then on the other spectrum, I have Leif, who's like, hey, like all we do is talk about work. Like I want to talk about family, like, because those things are really important to him. Then
right.
Cool, guess what? Those are the things I'm going to talk about with Leif. And then when it comes time for work conversations, cool. But I'll also add in the personal side so that he knows I listened, I know it's important, and boom, that's what we're doing as well.
Yeah. With the person so obviously it's different with each person, and you do have people who are on opposite ends of the spectrum. I think it's funny that you used such random names in order to talk about your two people. But the thing that I've struggled with then I think that this may be an experience that others have. Is that when you have the person that's like, hey, we're at work, I only want to talk about work. Cool. That doesn't give me much to go off of in order to try to get them engaged, right? If the person is saying, hey, we only talk about work stuff, they want to do a little bit of relationship building, man, that's great. And yeah, we can talk about some of the stuff that they're interested in. And, maybe I'll check at the beginning of the month. I'll set an alarm for myself to see like, hey, are there, card conventions or something in town? And so I'll make a point to bring those kind of things up, right? With the other person, hey, they only want to talk about work stuff. They're still disengaged.
I'm giving them ownership, but
Yeah,
I'm going back to what we said earlier, like I'm giving them ownership. That's how you get people engaged.
Okay.
I'm giving that person, hey, you want to only talk about work stuff and do work stuff? Cool. Hey, here's a project we're working on. You've been doing really good with these things. I want you to take lead next week. Here's what I need from you. Here's what's expected, right? Here's the parameters in which you can make decisions.
Yeah.
Here's the why behind what we're working on. Let me know how you want to do it. Come up with a plan. Brief me the plan. What do you need? 3 hours, 2 days? Like, you'll know as a leader, like how long it should take for them to come up with an initial plan, just like in the SEAL teams. Hey guys, here's our mission. Boom. Hey, boom, 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 boom. We need to be rolling out in 3 hours, reverse engineer that timeline back. Hey, you guys have 90 minutes to come up with a game plan. Here's all your stuff. I'm going to have you brief it to me because I'm not waiting 3 hours.
Right.
Because, we know things might need to be modified and changed. So whatever that is, specific to your industry, your job, your team, the project, whatever, give them a time frame for them to brief the plan to you. So I'm giving you ownership. I'm saying, hey, Lucas, I want you to take lead on this training next week. Or, hey, I want you to take lead on this project next week.
Right.
Here's the parameters. Here's your resources, right? Laying out all those things. Hey, today's Wednesday. By Friday at 11 a.m., I need you to schedule a time on my calendar for us to review next week's plan. If you have any questions between now and then, please don't hesitate to call me, send me an email, come down to my office. But between now and Friday at 11 a.m., I need you to place a time on our calendar for us to review this plan.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions, right? And then I'm going to have him read it back to me and say, hey, just to make sure we're on the same page and that my communication was clear, my commander's intent was clear, I want you to brief back to me what next week looks like and what you need to do between now and Friday at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to give that opportunity. Hey, we're talking business. This is work. This is work. This is what you want.
Right.
But this is how I get you engaged. I give you ownership over stuff.
Yeah.
I give you ownership over meaningful tasks.
I was about to say, right?
I give you ownership over meaningful tasks. I love Jocko shared this story one time about how he was talking with a leader. He's like, man, I just can't get this guy engaged, attitude, blah, blah, blah. And Jocko's like, cool, well, give him ownership over something. He follows up with the leader. He's like, hey, how's things going with that leader? Anything changed? He's like, no, it's like the same. If not, it's kind of worse. And Jocko is a little perplexed because he's like,
and this always works.
This always works.
Yeah.
And Jocko says, and he's like, what'd you give him ownership over? And he's like, well, taking out the trash and cleaning up. And he's like, okay. Jocko's like, that's my fault. I should have been a little more clear. You want to give meaningful tasks. So, hey, you know what? I'm going to get you engaged by giving you ownership over meaningful tasks. And then I'm going to encourage you along the way. I'm going to celebrate your wins. When you bring your plan back to me, I'm like, we're going to review it and say, hey, Lucas, I really like this. I like this. I like this. If it's a workable plan, my response is to say, hey, I like your plan. Let me know what I can do to support you. Now, if it's a plan that needs improvements because it's not even workable, like there's some good, but it's not workable.
Yeah. If it's not 30% of a good plan.
Yeah. It's 50, 60, 60-ish, 70%, like, 70 and above, like if that's workable, right?
Yeah.
C's get degrees, baby. So I'm going to let you run with it.
You'll find out on your own, and then you'll learn and have to problem solve those lessons. That's great.
Yep.
Yeah. Great tuition.
Yeah. Little tuition payment. And then also for me as a leader of like, oh, I was lacking this on the training, should have asked better questions. But if it's not a workable plan, I'm going to say, hey, Lucas, I really like these parts of the plans. Can you walk me through this section? Can you explain to me your thought process on doing it this way? Because from my perspective, this is what I see.
Yeah.
And so my intent when I'm asking you those questions is for you to see the mirror yourself so that you see the shortcomings in your plan. You make the modifications and changes to that. And then when you do that, it's still your plan. You have ownership and you're going out there and you're executing. Yeah. That's how you get people engaged. And give them ownership and have genuine conversations with them.
And, you know, one of the things you mentioned, like allowing them to make the plan and then you coming in and helping out, it puts you in this position. And Jocko talks about this in leadership strategy and tactics, where you are the sort of leadership genius.
Yeah.
So where you're not defending this plan that's your plan and now all of a sudden everybody's got to implement it, but you get to see where some of the opportunities for improving the plan are. You can make a couple of little suggestions. They roll and they do. If they don't, whatever. But then they're like, oh yeah, you know what? I didn't see this. Great, great spot, boss. Mm-hmm. And now confidence and trust across the board is built because of all those things. The last one that we get about people that don't engage is folks that you have to do a little bit of hand-holding with. And this can be really, really frustrating. Not that these other two things, we've talked about the knee-jerk reactions that we may have to this. You never all we talk about is work stuff. And it's like, yeah, freaking we're at work. Of course, all we're talking about is work stuff. Or, I only want to talk about work stuff. And it's like, all right, well then freaking get engaged if you're here to work, right? So those are sort of these knee-jerk reactions that we may have to it, right?
Which is super rare.
Yeah, right. But you want
to... They exist.
Yeah, and you do want to... This is why we talked about detachment as a superpower, like you said, so that you can engage. The third is this sort of employee where you go and you're like, hey, you seem a little disengaged. What's going on? And they're like, oh, well, I don't know what to do next. Cool.
I'm sorry. I wasn't clear. I'm immediately taking ownership. And if somebody doesn't know what to do, the ownership in that is so easy.
Right.
I wasn't clear with my communication. I wasn't clear with the plan. I wasn't clear with the next steps. It's so easy to connect yourself to that. And I'm taking ownership because it is on me and I believe it to be true. But when I take ownership, it disarms you from feeling like I'm attacking you for not knowing what to do. Because a bad leader is going to be like, what do you mean you don't know what to do?
How come you didn't ask me to go do something?
Were you not paying attention?
Yep.
Why didn't you ask questions? I asked you if it made sense. You said yes. Are you not paying attention to all the other people around you? That's what a bad leader is going to do. That is horrible. That's fear and intimidation. That's not leadership. That's manipulation. When you have to use your position, your authority, your title, when you have to tell somebody your title, that's not leadership. That is now manipulation. You're using your position and rank to make somebody comply. That's horrible. So if I did have somebody that was like, I don't know what to do, mm-hmm. I'm saying, hey, bud, I'm really sorry. Let's walk through the plan. Yeah. Walk me through what have you done? Where are you at? Let's figure out the next steps together.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have you walk me back through it. Okay, this is what you're doing. This is where you're at. Okay, here's where you're stuck. All right, cool. Hey, you know what? When we were talking through this earlier, man, I wasn't clear on this. Here's your next steps. You know what? Hey, go and grab a notebook. Let's review this together, and we're going to actually write out the next steps for you to follow. That way, you and I have alignment of where you're at, where you need to go, and then that way I know how to best support you moving forward. And so what I'm doing is I'm indirectly flanking you to write these things down so that you don't lose track, you don't lose focus, and you can follow that path line. And it's why would I not want to do that for my people?
100%.
It's only going to help them. We have checklists for a reason. And so sometimes we have to create checklists for things that you don't think you should, because people should just know what to do. But at the end of the day, life is dynamic, business is dynamic, things are crazy. You have to know what's going on. The most effective workouts I have is when they're already written down and I follow it. Now, I've been working out my whole life.
Yeah.
I can create some awesome, effective gut check workouts on the fly, where I just go from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. I can't consistently do that though. Mm-hmm. I've got to be in that mood. I've got to be that's the the environment has to be perfect for that. The pre-workout is flowing perfect. Like I just have mental clarity, like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
The best workouts I have, the most effective workouts I have are laid out. Cool. This is my warm up. Here's my next. That's why I love using Jason Kalipa's Train Hard app.
Yeah.
That's why I love using that at home. I use it on the road. I also have all my old workout notebooks that I'll go to. I have notes on my phone for workouts. I have whiteboards in my garage gym.
Yeah, the Discipline Equals Freedom app has a bunch of great stuff on there for workouts and nutrition too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, cool. I take it from my phone. Even though it's in my phone, when I'm at home, I write it out on the whiteboard or the mirror that I have in there.
Right.
You know what my kids also do? The same thing.
Yeah.
Because
I've seen that example.
I never told them to do it. I showed them. And so I love it. I'll go in there and I'll see on the mirror like Nola or Cora's handwriting, and they'll write out their workout on the mirror because that's what I do. Aiden uses the whiteboard.
That's right.
Because that's what I've done with him. And so he'll go out there and a few of his like core workouts that he wants to hit a few times a week, he just leaves them up there and they're there. And that's his SOP. That's his standard is he goes to that and go, hey, I did that one or that one. Or I have him in a group text with him and Amanda and I, and he'll just copy it, paste it into the notes of his phone and then do it.
Yeah.
And those are the good, effective ones. It's just following a list. It's the same thing we should be doing in business.
One of the things that is a common thread through all of this, and you've talked about it before, is that you can't do any of these things if you are staying in your office.
Oh, dude.
One of my favorite passages from War As I Knew It by General Patton is when he talks about how often he would go to the front lines. Now, like, he's in an open air Jeep. He's got his stars on his helmet and all of those kinds of things. So he's not like hanging out on the front line trying to get shot by, the forces that they're invading in Europe. But what he is doing is he's going on the front line enough to where the troops are seeing him. He's shaking hands with a couple of them. He's going to visit them in the hospitals. And then the people who are 2 degrees below him in rank, he makes sure that he knows everything that they're doing, right? The guys right below him and right underneath them, he knows what they're doing. He's present with them, and then, encourages those guys to do the same thing. With that said, you've talked a lot about the open chair policy versus the open door policy.
Yeah.
Why is that such an important thing when we're talking about this topic of getting your workforce to reengage? Why is it such an important thing that we are showing up? If we're way above, like if we're a C-suite person, maybe we've got offsite manufacturing places and things like that, where it's important that we go to those facilities and see them. Why is that such an important and such an impactful thing when we're talking about keeping our workforce engaged?
Well, it's just, it's what you were just saying, what Patton would do. It's being with your people, being seen by your people. That gives you the ability to actually engage with people.
I can't just do that over email?
No. Nope. This line that you said that I've said multiple times, you should have an open chair policy, not an open door policy. That came from when Dave Burke and I were doing an event. Like, I want to say it was 2018. I think it was, I don't remember the month. But anyways, it was in 2018. We were working, and I remember exactly where we're at. I just can't put the month in my brain right now, but it doesn't matter. Somebody, had brought up like, well, hey, I have an open door policy. Like, my people know they can come talk to me. And Dave was like, you should have an open chair policy. Get up out of your office and go spend time with your people.
Yeah.
And I've taken that and I've run with that saying as if it was mine, but it came from Dave Burke. And it's so true. Get up out of your office, go spend time with your people. When we were in Ramadi, we were on the eastern side of Ramadi. In order to go from the main base, Camp Ramadi, to Camp Corregidor, which is a forward operating base on the eastern side of Ramadi that was attacked almost every single day by enemy fighters, you had to drive down Route Michigan. You had to take a convoy in Humvees, Bradley fighting vehicles, tanks to get from one side to the next of the city. And that road, Route Michigan, was the most dangerous road in the world. There was 7 to 10 enemy attacks every day on that road.
Good grief.
About 3/4 of the way through our deployment, our senior leadership, Jocko, our senior chief, and some other leaders in our task unit took a convoy just to come see us and say, how are you guys doing? They brought us supplies. They, brought the mail. They brought all these things. Brought us some extra little goodies and some snacks and some, candy and, some things to help make our life a little more comfortable out there. And came and sat down with all the guys and then had individual conversations with every single one of us.
Wow.
And I'll never forget, I was out in the hallway. We lived in a building called Full Metal Jacket. It was a little blown out building at Camp Corregidor that we built up to be a livable space. Mm-hmm. And I was standing out in the hallway talking with Jocko, our senior chief, another one of our chiefs. And, they're just asking like, hey, how are you doing? How are the guys doing? How's Seth doing? Is there anything you need from us? Is Seth all right? Like everything good? Just checking, genuinely asking how we were doing because they cared about us.
Yeah.
The fact that they took a convoy just to come see us, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. You traveled the most dangerous road in the world just to see how we're doing, to have a face-to-face conversation and bring us some stuff. And I remember my senior chief was giving me a hard time about my gear getting all worn out and my, blood stains on my gear and my camis and my boots wearing out. And he made a comment about my boots being all worn out. And I just told him, I was like, yeah, this is my last pair of boots. We're running through gear pretty quickly out here just from just the op pace that we're running through. And Jocko was like, what size boot do you wear? And I told him 10.5. He's like, cool, Roger. And so we just keep talking, like genuine conversation. And then they're getting ready to leave. Jocko gave me his boots, man, because he also wears a size 10.5. And I'll never forget that. Like he gave me his boots because he knew my boots were wearing out, because he actually cared about me. Seth cared about us. Leif cared about his guys, and he cared about Delta Platoon, just like Seth cared about Charlie Platoon. Like our leadership truly cared about us. And when you do those little things to show your people that you care about them, you'll never have an issue with engagement. Now, a little bit of lack of engagement might flare up because of complacency or life or whatever. But the core of who we were in Task Unit Bruiser, we were bought in. We believed in the mission. We believed in our teammates. We believed in our leadership. And we had a culture of extreme ownership.
Yeah.
We didn't call it extreme ownership back then, but that's what we had. And because we had that culture, we were able to do incredible things. And when you care about your people, they will care about you. When you are engaged, your people will be engaged. When you communicate to your people, they will communicate back. When you build relationships with your people, they will build them back. You as a leader have to start doing it. And sometimes people quickly get on board. Others, they might wait. They want to see, is this real?
Yeah. Is this legit?
And once you show them that it's legit, you'll have buy-in.
Right.
So,
well, good deal, Dave and JP and the rest of the Echelon Front instructors give these kind of things. Like the Q&A that we do here is really incredible for people who listen to this podcast. If you want sustained feedback like this or individual feedback like this, go be part of the Extreme Ownership Online Academy. There are weekly calls where this kind of interaction is something that you could do every week. Go check out echelonfront.com for all of the different courses that are online. Go check out the books, Extreme Ownership, Dichotomy of Leadership, where all of the leadership qualities and characteristics and processes that we talk about on this podcast are all based off of the stuff that you find in those books. Also, big shout out and thanks to the folks over at First in Nutrition. Anybody who listens to the JP Dinnell podcast, if you go to firstinnutrition.com/JPpod, they'll give you 4 free weeks of nutrition coaching. You know, we've talked about training Jiu-Jitsu, which is just an absolute joy that we both get to do. We're in different phases of life now, right? We're moving into the phase, which I'm super stoked about. My oldest is coming around to that age where we can start getting him on the mat. I'm, having those preliminary conversations with Formigo where I'm like, hey, all right, my younger one is, I think I told you the story. So we were gifted 2 dwarf pygmy goats.
Yes.
Yeah. And my 2-year-old, the goat nibbled on his finger. And so he bit the goat because it bit him.
He's done that a few times. Yeah. Every time he does it, you tell me, and I'm like, I love this kid.
So he's just a feral little monster. And I think he's going to be great. Our oldest one, a little bit more ethereal. And the way that he approaches things, he's a little bit more unsure of stuff at first. Really wants to test things out. So, we'll see, right? We're one
of those. This literally sounds like Danny's kids.
Yeah, like we want them to make sure that those first experiences on the mat are great. So we're stoked about that, and I'm really stoked to get them into some Origin geese for the little babies. So we're excited about some of the stuff that Origin has got coming out for the 250th anniversary of these great United States of America. If you haven't already checked out, we're talking about the ways that we communicate with our kids, things that we're doing for our kids. If you haven't gone to JockoFuel.com lately and looked at their Warrior Kid line that Jocko and Chris Pratt have done, it is freaking incredible. So we've got our kids on the Warrior Kid shakes.
That strawberry one tastes so good.
It's so I want to crush all of their protein shakes, which is why I've had to go with the raspberry gelato, because I want a little
that new flavor is so
protein
good.
Shake every now and then. So go to JockoFuel.com, check out the Warrior Kid stuff, go find some stuff for yourself, use code JPPod20, it'll save you 20% on everything that we've got over there in the show notes below us. If you need apparel printing, go to On The Path Printing. If you like us during the summer, if you're built more for snow camouflage than you are for the summer heat, then make sure that you go check out the After Sun Care, the anti-itch cream for mosquitoes and bug bites and things like that, because they're rampant here during the summer months, as well as looking at the stuff over at Bruiser Arms. Bruiser Arms is Jocko, JP, and Leif putting together custom gear packages, and on top of that, custom training for you, team building things that you guys can do with them, as well as going to echelonfront.com and looking at the FTX. We've still got a few tickets available for the muster that's coming up in July 9th and 10th. Yep. So if you send us a message at JP Dinnell Podcast, go follow us on Instagram, shoot us a message. We have a little incentive for our listeners who go over there. There may or may not be there will be. There will be. Okay, yeah. Guaranteed.
There will be. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep.
There will be a very healthy discount to the San Diego muster.
Yeah, for only for podcast listeners. So as a thank you for sticking with us now, coming up on 3 years of doing the JP Dinnell podcast, go check that out. Shoot us a message. We'll get you connected with the ops team over at Echelon Front as a thank you for supporting what we're doing here with the JP Dinnell podcast. And as we wrap stuff up, man, we've talked about a lot of the primary issue that people have, not just generationally, but within any type of leadership, and that is finding out how to take care of your people, keeping your people engaged. What final thoughts do you have for us as we close out this episode?
Every time I mean, it's been 20 years since Jocko gave me those boots, and every time I share that story, I get emotional. And the reason why I get emotional still 20 years later is because of how powerful that moment was for me, understanding how much he truly cared about me. And it's always been the same way with Leif and Seth. And it's something I think about, and it's something I hope to be able to do with others, is show them how much I care about them. Don't tell them, but show them. And so I would challenge all of us, all of our listeners, myself, Lucas, we're also included in this. Evaluate the relationships in your life and ask yourself, how can you show them that you genuinely care about them at a much deeper and intentional level. Well, I hope this episode has been a reminder to go do the work that's needed, to put in the effort, to build your legacy, and to never settle. This has been the JP Dinnell Podcast, episode 142.